I don't think any of us know what's really around the corner, but I would certainly hope that we're seeing the green shoots of a reduction within the food inflation prices. As you said just now in your introduction, we've seen a fall in that inflationary rate between May and June, and let's certainly hope that that is going to continue on that track. It was interesting you raised the point about Sainsbury's reducing prices of certain goods like milk and pasta and chicken, because what we're seeing is that certain food types are beginning to decline in terms of price inflation, but there are others that are still on the increase. So we're not out of the woods yet, but I think we are starting to see the green shoots.
That's good. I mean, that's encouraging for the final consumer. Let us just go back and evaluate what happened in the last couple of months, because there is a view out there that there had been price gouging, that retailers were taking advantage of higher cost pressures to maximize their margins and pass on all of those extra costs to consumers, even beefing up their margins. Is there evidence to your mind that price gouging has taken effect?
I think the thing we've got to remember is that the retailers are under very, very similar pressures to the consumers. They have also seen their costs increase in terms of the utility prices. They're being pressured very heavily in terms of the rates that they're paying their staff, etc. So they're seeing their costs rise. Also, they're seeing price rises through their supply chain, because these inflationary pressures are affecting everybody. It's not just pockets of the economy that's being affected by this. So I don't know whether there has been price gouging taking place or not, but I think we've got to look at it from both sides. The pressures that the retailers are under, but also the pressures that the consumers are under.
Earlier on, when starting off this segment, I was talking about the price cuts that some of the retailers have started to introduce on milk, poultry, etc. How sustainable are these price cuts? It's very strange to see not just inflation not rising, but actually prices being cut. This is deflationary. How sustainable is that for the retailers from a revenue perspective?
Of course, it's going to depend on where the source of those cuts are coming from. If you've got other products within the product line that are subsidizing the cuts on some of those core goods, then it's not really sustainable. If the retailers have found ways of reducing those costs through the supply chain, then it may be possible to sustain it. But really what we're seeing is retailers tackling some of the root causes, identifying micro efficiencies within their processes, within their operating practices, and using those as mechanisms to pass price cuts on to the consumer.
What is your view on what happens with Ocado from here? There's been so much volatility in the stock. It had been really lagging for the most part of the year. Then earlier on, there were reports that Amazon was thinking of investing in the company. Those have now been denied. How do you see this all playing out? And do you see Ocado as a ripe acquisition target?
I think it's a really interesting organisation. I mean, there's clearly two parts to Ocado Group. You've got the retail part, which we're all familiar with as the online grocer, but then there's a large technology part that's sitting behind that. And I think, to be honest, if Ocado is an acquisition target, it would be that technology part of the organisation that is of most interest to the acquiring party, because ultimately it's about data. And that's one thing that Ocado have in absolute masses. They've accumulated so much data in terms of buying behaviours, in terms of routing information for their delivery drivers, in terms of purchasing and forecast data, that's really the treasure trove that an acquiring party is going to be after. It's not necessarily about acquiring another route to market in terms of grocery retailing.
And Steve, let me just end this by asking you why M&S has done so well this year, up more than 50%.
I think that's a really interesting question. And M&S have gone through a big transformation themselves. They've obviously been looking at information and data in terms of what their customers are trying to do. And as all organizations are, they're becoming much more customer centric. There's never been a more important time to take that focus onto the customer. And I think the results that we're seeing from Marks and Spencer's is testament to that. They're obviously found the right recipe for them at this particular time.